2024 marks 35 years since the premiere of License to Kill, Timothy Dalton's second and final outing as 007. And to celebrate this underrated film, the British James Bond fan club put on a birthday party complete with a panel of experts. I managed to grab 3 of them during the evening for impromptu chats. In this episode, I'm speaking to visual effects artist Alan Church, who was title designer Maurice Binder's assistant on License to Kill.
I'm a massive Bond fan, or I was in those days. I still am now to a certain degree, but more then. Now, I watched my first Bond movie, Doctor No and Thunderball, in '72, and I was fascinated about the imagery of the dots going across the screen and the titles. At License to Kill, Maurice thought he wasn't going to do the Bond, it was going to somebody else. It was his last one. It was getting very political at that time about who was going to do the new titles.
Right.
But Cubby was very loyal, and he said, Maurice is doing it. And he came in one day on a Monday morning saying, I'm doing the titles, I'm doing them. But we need a theme, What theme?
Yeah.
And I thought he meant Bond theme, but he meant a theme that goes with the film. So we watched the first reel that was a rough cut, and it was a wedding camera.
Oh yeah, the opening.
So we started working out how we were going to do it. Now, little did he know that I was desperate to do the gun barrel. It's iconic. And he trusted me to do it completely. So I worked with Tim, I worked with the components, I went back to the original components. Hence, if you see it nowadays on the Blu-rays or the HD Masters, you'll see that License to Kill is far better quality than the previous ones, which are duplicated in generation.
Right.
So I'm very proud of that. So I put all that together, but during that period, we were shooting the ladies in Uxbridge, about 4 miles away from Pinewood.
Right.
In a warehouse, freezing cold warehouse, and we started proceeding to do the titles. It took many months to produce them traditionally before CGI, but it was a great privilege, and seeing it today, I'm very proud of it, and I put together a lot of the effects as well, like the head-up display, the laser effects on Living Daylights for the Aston Martin, and the head-up display there. So my first Bond was Octopussy. Mm-hmm. I only did a couple of shots on that, but then Never Say Never, I worked on that, did a lot of that, and then I got to know Cubby and the Eon family, especially Cubby and Iris Rose was the lady that took me under my wing. I worked on the Bonds, obviously, but then during the period of the 80s, I got to work on a P.T. Yates film, Who Did Bullet. I got to do Krull. Okay. I worked with James Cameron on Alien.
Oh.
So I was responsible for a lot of the lightning effects where the mother alien comes around the way.
Yeah.
I did a lot of work on that. And Mr. Cameron, who was a perfectionist, that's all I would like to say about that. But he gave me a load of elements from Terminator, and I had to rework them to make it work for Aliens. And I was the last person to finish the work on Aliens. I had a breakdown on that film because that film was then my last work with the end titles, which were ordinary white on black, but there was a lot of other work prior to that on that. It was blown up to 70 millimeter, and then it was shown 2 days later at the Odeon Marble Arch.
There's a bit of a discussion going on about the 4K releases of James
yes.
films. Do you have a view on?
Yeah, I do.
Is it too smooth? Should there be more grain?
Bear in mind, film stocks in the 80s weren't the best.
Yes.
So the duplicate stocks were made. I won't go into great detail, but it made the grain sharper more because they were very flat, and by increasing the brilliance, you saw a lot of grain. Now, Aliens was one that suffered from film stocks. Now, I saw the 4K, and I got shouted down a couple of times by saying how good it was.
Okay.
I personally think it's an improvement. Having seen Aliens on every format going, and remembering I was producing my work on 35mm, and it was a 1:1.85 ratio, so it wasn't scope. So it used a slightly, you have black borders top and bottom.
Yeah.
But when it was blown up to 70mm, It looks rather grainy and flat. Now, the advantages on 70mm, it has an improved quality, but the improvements went with the soundtrack because it was a magnetic soundtrack. So it was 6-track magnetic soundtrack rather than optical, which was far better in a magnetic soundtrack world. Now, I saw and I bought it in 4K. I was pleasantly surprised.
Okay. So
Now,
you like it?
I liked it. Yeah, this new version, I liked it. You see, I have more a problem when I look at, like we saw License to Kill earlier. When I look at what they've done to my titles, or Maurice's titles, I did subtleties which they've graded out. The girl coming up from the gaming ship with the watery effect.
Yeah.
There's a pulsing which you can see as she's coming up to frame. Now that, I shot my a laser disc. And I saw that you saw red, green, blue colours of the rainbow. I shot that on film,
Right.
just angling the laser disc.
Yeah.
Now that was introduced as she was coming up. What the graders or colorists have done on the 4K, on the 2K masters, they think it's a mistake and they tried to grade it out. So what you see is a pulsing, pulse, 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 pulse.
Do they not, when they do these things, do they not speak to the original creators?
No,
to
they
say
don't.
What was
No,
your
they don't.
intention?
No, but I didn't get a credit then. You see, I remember Maurice saying when the pan and scans versions were coming out, it crucified him to see what they did. Now I look at Honor Majesties. I didn't work on that, obviously. I was only 5 then.
Yeah.
But whereas George says this never happened to the other fella, Maurice started introducing the colour of the titles, the blue.
Yeah.
They tried to grade it out. Now, all of these little things, you can never, we're all perfectionists, we all are good at criticising, and I don't know the politics and everything.
Yeah.
But, getting back to your first comment about aliens, I think it's pretty good.
The steel books of some of the Bond Blu-rays that came out recently, which used screenshots, I assume, from the title sequences.
Oh, yes.
I personally was a little bit disappointed in the image quality.
Yeah, it's got to understand when we're doing the title sequences for the Bonds, it's like 5 elements being put together.
They're all optically.
So yeah, it's all optically. I used to work on my main job in those days was an optical cameraman. So you had element after element after element after element that was being filmed on one plane.
Yeah.
So it's a generation loss. Now, it wasn't designed to be blown up to a still frame. Now,
Yes.
I've seen like the License to Kill one and a couple of ones I've done, is that they've reworked some of them. Now, maybe they could have improved the quality. Diamonds Are Forever, I like that image with the, that.
Yeah.
But I can understand why the quality isn't quite there. But I like, I like the organic, the grain, the look on that. And I like the fact that they've used imagery from the titles.
Yes.
But yeah, I can see a loss in quality. But you're looking at an image, rather than a moving image, so grain changes on every frame.
Yeah.
You're looking at a still image, which is frozen. And you can study it more.
Alan, this was hugely educational. Thank you very much.
It's a pleasure.
And before you go, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a like, subscribe to the channel, and hit the bell icon to get notified whenever I post new content. Thank you.